You know that feeling when laughter fills a room? The kind that draws people closer? That's what this episode is all about. Welcome to the Today's the Day Changemakers Podcast. This week, I'm joined by my special guest co-host, Michael Gershe, speaker, comedian, photographer, and author of The Magic of Life, a sun story of hope after tragedy, grief, and a Speedo. He is also a senior advisor at Kent State University's professional pilot program, and if you missed his full story on a previous episode, be sure to go back and listen because it's quite powerful. Together, Michael and I explore the incredible backgrounds of Lenny Dave and Kermit Cole, co-founders of the upcoming Humor Camp 2025. Lenny Dave is a nationally recognized comedy historian and speaker who spends decades studying how laughter shapes culture, connection, and healing. And Kermit Cole is a marriage and family therapist with degrees in both psychology and philosophy, bringing a unique lens to how humor impacts human relationships, vulnerability, and emotional well-being. In this episode, we unpack how humor has influenced their personal and professional journeys, and how it became a tool for transformation, not just relief. We talk about the difference between comedy and humor, and why that distinction matters more than most people realize. And of course, we dive into the heart behind Humor Camp 2025, an upcoming event this October designed not to teach you how to be funny, but how to bring humor into your work with purpose. Whether you're a therapist, coach, teacher, clinician, or creative, this camp is for professionals who want to engage more authentically, deepen human connection, and maybe even earn some continuing education credits while they're at it. Because humor isn't just about laughs. It's about lightening what's heavy and creating space for truth, connection, and growth. So let's get started. But before we do, please go to the Today is the Day Changemakers YouTube channel, click that subscribe button, make a comment, share a review, and we really want to hear from our listeners, and we thank them from over 1,078 cities around the globe and 110 countries. Truly, truly grateful. Today's the Day is so much more than just these conversations with these incredible humans. We have created an entire movement together to make the world a better place in all the work that we are doing in our corner of the world or beyond. So please join us on this journey. Go to todayisthedayliveit.com. Now let's get started for real. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers Podcast. I'm your host, Jody Grinwald, and as I say every single episode, I interview the changemakers, the inspirers, and those who are disrupting the status quo in the best way possible. And today, I am so lucky because I don't just have one guest, I have two guests and a co-host. So first, we're going to say hi to Michael. Hi, Michael. How are you?
I'm fine. Good afternoon, Jody. Hope you're doing well. Hi, Kermit and Lenny.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
guys. Michael, before I formally introduce Kermit and Lenny, I'm just going to give a little bit of your background. And you've been part of the podcast in the past as a survivor of drunk driving crash that killed his mom and nearly himself when he was 8 weeks old. Despite breaking almost all of his bones in the crash, he went on to become a collegiate swimmer, a comedian, a speaker, author, college educator, photographer, TEDx speaker, which I'm super excited about for you. And he wrote the book, The Magic of Life, a sun story after tragedy, grief, and a Speedo. So feel free to please go on Amazon and find that book. It's a great book. And thank you so much, Michael, for being here and co-hosting with me.
I look forward to it. Thanks for having me again.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have some fun. And now we're going to go over to Kermit Cole. Hi, Kermit. How are you?
Well,
That's awesome. I'm so happy to have you on here. And Michael, thank you so much for introducing us. I really appreciate that. So Kermit, real quick, I just want to give a little background about you. Kermit Cole's interest in humor began at an early age when he witnessed his older brothers making his mother laugh, even and perhaps especially in the hardest times. Since then, he has studied it as a source of the profoundest wisdom. Oh, I like that, profoundest wisdom. During his first career in film and television, Kermit made Before Comedy, short film about the discovery of comedy by prehistoric clowns, followed by Living Proof, HIV, and Pursuit of Happiness, both of which explored how we face fear with laughter. Kermit, we're going to go more into that in a little bit. That's really exciting to be able for us to uncover. And then Lenny, hello, Lenny, how are you?
hello. I'm doing great. Good morning, good afternoon, good night.
Wherever you are.
That's right.
Lenny Dave is a nationally recognized comedian, historian, speaker, author, and humorist. So you can see there's a theme going here for those who are listening. His creative mission is simple and very human and needed now more than ever to make a positive difference in people's lives and to help bring an end to toxic sameness. We've got to talk about that. He informs and entertains a wide variety of audiences, and he's been doing so for over 35 years. Should I have said that, Lenny? Is it okay?
That's fine. That's fine. I'm 38 years old. I've been doing it for a long time.
That's
A little
perfect.
bit
That is
longer
perfect.
than that. Yeah.
But I also want to say you're co-founder of Humor Camp, a joyful, informative, multi-day exploration of humor's role in connecting and enriching both our personal and professional lives. So we're going to talk about Humor Camp too, and we're going to talk about Kermit's role in this and Michael as well. And that's how I found this. So for everyone, I think it's important to know Facebook does work, because if Michael didn't post about his connection to Humor Camp, we would not all be sitting here right now. Right, Michael?
That is correct. Yay for Facebook.
Absolutely. So we're going to get started with some questions here to learn more about everyone. And Kermit, I want to start with you because when we first spoke, and we did kind of a pre-call as we always do, I just want to start with the difference, and I think this is so important because I didn't even think about it, between comedy and humor.
Well, this is actually something I've come to understand in the course of doing this. I mean, I could go back to that time that I mentioned when I was young and my family was having hard times, and I watched my brothers make my mother laugh, and it was so profound to me. And it happened to be around that time that I think I was maybe 11 years old, saw the first Saturday Night Live with my brothers. It was the first time they got me to stay up late, and they knew that this was going to be important. And we saw George Carlin, and I saw that. And so naturally from that point, I thought, I want to be a comedian. But what I've really learned is it wasn't a comedian that I wanted to be. I've never actually pursued that. It was that I wanted to really understand this thing that I'd been seeing around me, how humor transformed, was part of a change from a story that seemed to be tragic and stuck and at its end to one that seemed to be beginning, and where new storylines, new potential was arising. And so I define that as humor. Humor is to see, is to realize these moments that we think there's only one way to see something, or only one way to understand something, or only one way that a thing can be, and then realizing that that's never true in human life. That's simply never true. Human life is made up of an infinite number of perspectives at any given time that have woven together throughout all of history to arrive at this moment, and that this moment is now becoming part of weaving into many possible futures. So that's how I understand humor. And that comedy is what we see when somebody's devoted themselves to developing the virtuosity, the expertise, the professionalism, where they can use that fundamental, essential part of being human in the service of something. And that could be in the service of, selling tickets, making money. Good thing, not a bad thing. Could be in the purpose of weaving together a social group, whatever, but having a very specific real world intention. And that I think it's helpful to know that, to be aware of the distinction. I think of humor as something that arises naturally and interpersonally and intimately in our lives. Comedy is something that is more public. I mean, that's the better way to say it. It's the public version. And so by studying comedy, we can see what happens when people who have acquired skills and virtuosity use humor and in these brilliant ways. But I think that if we don't make that distinction between humor and comedy, then the risk is that we get intimidated. We see these we see these virtuosos, and we think that our attempts at humor are somehow lesser than, somehow not as good. And, like we think, baking bread is something that, really good professional artisanal bakers get to do. When the truth is, like anything that you bake at home, anything is going to fill the house with, this aroma that you can't get any other way. And it's the same with humor. To understand that when we make someone we care about laugh, that's as good as any comedian anywhere ever.
So well put. And the baking of the bread, when we first talked about it, I was like, oh, now I'm hungry. It's because it's real. We all can sense it. We know what that is like, to be able to smell fresh bread and to be able to laugh. We all make people laugh in some way, but we're not professional comedians. Now we have two of them on here as well, but I'm going to go to Lenny real quick now. And you stand on the stage, but you
don't want to freeze now.
Talk about comedic timing.
That's right.
Oh, man.
We can fill the space.
Right.
I think the question she was getting ready to ask was, should we be built? We'll be polite. Oh, there you
we
are.
go. There we go. We're back. Yay. You see, this is comedic timing is right on time. Look at that. That couldn't have been better.
Right.
So my question was, I'm asking you about the difference in your world, because you get to stand on the stage and do other things that are related to this as well, between humor and comedy.
As a comedy historian, not a comedian, my challenge is not to make the audience laugh, but to take them back to a time that they remember. Could be the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and the great comedians who made them laugh, because my audiences tend to be active seniors, the 55 plus crowd. Some are in retirement communities, some are very active, but they miss the comedy of yesterday because it takes them back to a special place. So my interaction with them is not to make them laugh, but to take them to a place, remind them of the people that made them laugh, to allow them to laugh because of their memories, because of their nostalgic recollections of who they would watch that TV show with, who they saw that movie with. Or, as you were saying, talking about the baking, that they would go over to a relative's house to watch Milton Berle because they didn't have a television, but this relative did. And we would go over there on a certain night, and there would be dinner, and we'd walk in the house and it would smell like brisket and the potatoes, and you could smell the cake for dessert. And so my job is to take them back to a happier place, to transport them emotionally to a more positive experience than perhaps what they are living in right now. And that's powerful.
Very powerful.
Okay.
Yes.
May
Go
I
ahead.
add something to that?
Yes. Sure.
Well, one of the noted researchers on laughter is Robert Provine, and what some of the upshot of some of his research is that the moment of laughter isn't as closely connected to something funny happening as it is connected to a moment of deep social connection. People feel connected, feel that they recognize, they experience a feeling of connection in that moment. And that's what a brilliant comic does, is they'll take two things and connect them, and then you realize the connection of that and how we're all connected through that, and all those connections. And that's why sometimes actually people notice, sometimes we'll laugh moments of tension, moments of tragedy, moments of telling something very painful. We'll laugh and we'll feel that it's inappropriate, but that's because the laughter really comes from these deep moments of feeling connected, and then the skill comes with where do you go from that. And what it just crossed my mind when Lenny was talking is that, well, I think that what the really skillful comedians do is they learn how to cultivate and foster that feeling of connection that we have interpersonally in our private lives. They learn how to make that happen in a public space. And they're in a way kind of very self-sacrificing, I could say. It's kind of funny, because they're not actually, what they're creating is a feeling of connection for the people in the audience, the people, the groups that have come, and that they will leave together talking about it and laughing together. And the comedians often talk about how then they go off to a hotel room alone after this intense social experience, and they have to deal with all that. Well, people are going off, the people who came to the show are going off together and continuing to experience that. But what I was realizing is that what Lenny's doing is he's recreating all that. He's recreating those moments of connection that these seniors, remember, that these, brilliant comedians cultivated for them. And he's actually bringing that alive again. And that's Lenny's brilliance.
And part of the way that I do it is visually, because, some people learn visually or have memories, snapped back into the presence by seeing a picture of Jack Benny or Milton Berle or Lucy or Carol Burnett. And so part of what I do, I think the essence of it is cognitive stimulation. And so I get a group of people who may be very quiet and alone and closed off, and they see a picture of Sid Caesar and they smile because they haven't seen a picture of Sid Caesar in 50 years. And all of a sudden they start thinking about sitting on that couch that was covered with plastic. And my grandmother would sit over here, and she had this big bowl of popcorn. I'll never forget it. And so it's the cognitive stimulation that starts the storytelling and bringing these people literally back to life. That's the beauty of what I'm able to foster as a comedy historian. What Michael gets to do as a comedian, he has to make people laugh, or he goes back to his day job, which he probably does anyway because he needs to make a living. But that's the difference between a comedian and a comedy historian.
Yeah, and I want to touch upon a couple of things. What Kermit said was that unity, we're building that culture together, that, when we're all laughing together and say in a room, as a comedian, you're taking that sense of humor to write material and stuff, and you're hoping an audience of 150, 200 will come together and laugh. So we have that connection. Sometimes we have a connection of no one laughing, which is the worst thing as a comedian, but it happens. Sometimes that room has a different style of humor, for comedy, and it's just part of the situation. But I will say, when you have an audience laughing at your thoughts and the things that you wrote, there's nothing better than fresh baked bread or that brisket Lenny was talking about, because these are my ideas and thoughts. You went, okay, and we're supposed to see something as a comedian, satire. We're supposed to see things about life and turn it into funny to use as a coping mechanism, through all the hard times or whatnot. And when someone says after the show, "Thank you for making me laugh," that's the payoff right there.
Yeah, so it's okay that it might not be making the millions and you have to go back to the day job, but that fills the soul right there, right?
Yeah, I have health care, so with my day job, so I'm fine with that.
That's awesome. Michael, do you have any question for Kermit or Lenny you want to bring
I
up?
do. I want to talk to you guys about the development of Humor Camp and your goals for the people coming and what you hope that they take away from it.
Kermit, that's yours. You go. I'll
Thank
follow
you.
up.
Okay. Well, so after I made the film about people with HIV and AIDS, which was a little unexpected. It kind of fell into my lap, basically. I was looking for a film to make, and a good friend he just brought this to me, and there wasn't at the time, there wasn't any time to think about it. Partly, and there were logistic reasons, but there was also just the fact that this is 1993. People were dying, and while they were dying, the whether they deserved to die or not was being debated, and that drove me crazy, and that led to making the film. And there was other things to say, but that's one. And basically, as a result of doing that, I very unexpectedly found myself wanting to go deeper into working with people in crisis. I couldn't go back to just, working on dog food commercials and, so forth, whatever. And, hoping to make a film once in a while that felt good. And I just ended up, couldn't shake it, and went back, got a degree in psychology, and worked with people in crisis, psychosis, trauma, and kept noticing, again, because I was disposed to, that it was the moments we were laughing that felt like the moments really, it wasn't just incidental, it wasn't just a relief. It seemed to me, I couldn't shake the idea that these were the moments where something new was arising, some new meaning, some new possibility was arising. And over time, that I started doing research, and it developed into a theory about why that is. And the thing that I just mentioned about Provine, that's part of it. And how to use it. And I was, spent a lot of years just figuring out, how do we really use this? And then over time, and then I started doing presentations at philosophy conferences, psychology conferences, related things on this theory. And it just took form to the point where I thought, I want to do kind of like something that I thought of calling a humor revival camp. Like I imagined it in kind of like a Pentecostal, revival mode of saying there's something more to humor than just simply laughing. There's something more to laughing than just simply laughing. And over time, I've explored this down to the point where, I feel like I can make a good case for laughter really being at the core of the world itself, not just being human, but even just the fact, just this universe we live in. There's ways to look at it that can best be expressed as a laugh. I won't take time to get into that, but so this all developed to this idea. Is like I just started imagining organizing a camp, with that kind of fervor to it. There's that kind of evangelical fervor around humor, and one of the most important connections I've made through all this stuff that I've been doing is when I went to present at the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor, which was actually the first time that I felt like I was, walking this out in public. Not, like the psychology conferences, that's one thing, but here's the people that are going to judge whether I have something worth saying or not. And almost didn't make it out of my hotel room. I was so scared. And just by chance, walked onto the elevator with Lenny, told him my basic theory, and he said, "This is groundbreaking." And we've been talking ever since about doing this project. And then when I went to I just happened to be driving near the National Comedy Center in Jamestown, New York. Never thought about making a trip to go there, but I was within 45 minutes, so I just had to go. Expected to stay for 2 hours. And that's basically that 2-hour, what was supposed to be a 2-hour visit has now become, I've been there over a week now, pieced together over time. And now this project, because it's such an amazing resource for anybody that has any interest, any interest of any kind in comedy. It's a must go. It's the Smithsonian Museum of Comedy. It's incredible. And there's a lot of depth in their scholarship, in their work. It's the thoughtfulness of it, the creativity of it, the technology of it is just amazing. It's an amazing experience. But a couple of things that I noticed while I was there is that it's really best done in a group. Like I was alone, and I realized this is so much more if you can get a really substantial group together. So I called Lenny, and here we are. This is the opportunity to offer to people help and assistance and a real reason to go there, and the help that they need to make their time well spent. Really use the time efficiently and effectively, and get exactly what they want, and know that they're not leaving any stone unturned. And that happens before we go and after we go, using the online resources. But most importantly, the time that we spend at the center to make social connections, and for the people who will need it, continuing professional, continuing education credits we will be providing. so they can write it off. So they get write it off too.
So that's how Kermit remembers meeting me. I remember meeting Kermit in the lobby of the hotel, because if we were in an elevator and you said what you just said, it would have been a 150-story building between the top and the lobby for you to tell that story.
I could do the elevator again.
And so we were in a lobby, and my nature is when I meet people, I like to talk to people and get to know who they are, where they come from. And the minute I started talking to Kermit, I had two options: get out of this conversation now, or you're going to be in it really deep for a long time. I chose the latter. Thought about the first, but I went with the latter. And I realized that Kermit gets it at such a deep level that people like this don't come along that often. So get to know this person. And my background as a comedy historian had taken me to Vincennes, Indiana for the Red Skelton Museum of American Comedy. It had taken me to Harlem, Georgia, where the Laurel and Hardy, or the Oliver Hardy Museum is. Oliver Hardy, half of Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy. And when Kermit started explaining the National Comedy Center, and I knew about this place, but I had never been there. It's like, if you want to learn about religion, you go to Mecca or Jerusalem or wherever. You go to where the mountain is. And so the mountain of comedy, the birthplace, the home, is in Jamestown, which is where Lucy was born. So that's why it's there in the first place. And so the National Comedy Center is this church of comedy. And what Kermit does is he spins it on its head. He said, it's not just about making people laugh. It's about connecting people. And what happens in making that connection, whether you're a teacher connecting to your students, a nurse or a doctor trying to connect with the patient to get to the core of what's going on in their head, a business leader trying to connect with their community or their company, their employees. How can humor connect people and create that sense of a bond to inspire people to collaborate? When I think about the Changemakers philosophy of connecting, collaborating, creating, and inspiring, if you don't connect, the other things don't happen. And humor is that social glue, that they call it a social lubricant that brings people together. And so Jamestown and the National Comedy Center and the Lucy Desi Museum is the place to have this camp, this revival that Kermit feels so strongly about. And now I do too, obviously. That's the place where it has to be. And that's where we're all going to come together in October 9th to the 12th. And for 3.5 days, we're going to have that very powerful moment together as a group, digging deeper into comedy and humor as the basis of all comedy.
And I just want to be clear for the listeners, and whoever wants to take this question, is that you're not teaching people at this humor camp how to be a comedian. You're teaching them how to best connect, and connection is everything, the basis of everything I do in all of my work. So I love that that's what you're doing too. And so this is not about becoming a comedian. So don't go there expecting that you're going to be taught how to become a comedian, right? So,
right. Yeah, I think some of the important stuff, I think Jody froze, so I'll take the opportunity. Well, first off,
oh no, not again.
Yeah, I started answering.
There you go. We're back.
Yeah. Lenny mentioned spinning around, which reminded me. Sometimes I refer to my elevator pitch as an alligator pitch, which is the amount of time it takes me to grab somebody and start spinning them around. But anyway, yes, I think some of the most important time that we will spend in Jamestown is actually the time not at the museum. The time at the museum is great. It's like going to church, but let's say, but it's also the time that we spent just being together. I'll just say, in some of my presentations, one of the key demonstrations of the point I'm making, after everything presented about what humor is, the history of it, history going back thousands, if not millions of years of humor, is just, I have people look in each other's eyes, just simply turn, look in each other's eyes and feel what they feel. And inevitably, within moments, people start smiling and laughing. And I'm like, that is the point. All of the comedy, the best jokes, it's all about that moment. And if you can just start with that, if you can just remember to look in the eyes and feel that, then, a joke is helpful, but that's the main thing. And so that's some of what, we'll be doing some exercises having, like that, just remembering this, because I think, as I was sort of saying, the problem with comedy, as great as it is it can kind of take away from us the feeling that we have what it takes to get people to laugh. We defer to we think unless we can be Robin Williams, there's no use trying. And even Robin Williams had this problem when he was with his kids. His kids would say, I don't want you to be Robin Williams. I want you to be Dad. I want you to stop doing voices and be with us. And so he even struggled with that. And so we're going to be saying, this is something that just comes with being human. It's not out of your reach.
It sounds to me like it's such a great professional development, connective experience for all different industries, backgrounds, including nonprofit professionals. For, being one of those myself, I feel like there's not a lot of comedy in nonprofit. So it's really nice if you can, but the connection is the most important part of being a nonprofit professional. And connecting with your donors and connecting with those you steward. So I think it's important that those all consider going and attending humor camp. Michael, you are going to be there as well. Do you want to share a little bit about what you'll be doing there?
Whatever Lenny tells me to do.
You're giving me that power. Thank you. I'll take it.
If he wants me to bring in Skyline chili for him, then I will. I think my role after talking to Lenny and also being a practitioner is also how I can just share with the people there as we build a community together, is how I also use it to get through trauma and grief, since a lot of these people will have their own stories. Again, it's learning from each other. And okay, how does Jody use humor to get through meetings and in nonprofit, and also Changemakers, building that unity together among the people that she works with. I think my role is both sides of as a comedian, but also humor and how that plays a part of my life on a daily basis, whether I'm advising a student or just, on stage, but also my personal use of it to cope in a healthy way. And, if there's a first responder there or a teacher, we know they have a warped sense of humor because that's how they cope in a healthy way. So again, it's learning from each other, building that unity together, and how we can just share those stories. So not only do we understand like the historical part of humor and comedy from the center, which is amazing, by the way, but I think it's just, coming together and sharing our stories so we can go forth out and be better at what we do, but also then show other people how we use humor in our lives. So we're not so stressed. So we have a chance to sit back and laugh at something maybe we didn't do it before. And when I do my presentations for DUI offenders, and I start off doing comedy to reduce that tension. And once you bring people together by comedy or humor, then you can take them anywhere you want. And I think that's what's so powerful about humor camp is we're taking those lessons that we've learned as theorists or practitioners and building a stronger community together.
And let me just jump on that for a second. The reason we brought Michael in is not because he's funny, and you are funny. Is that correct?
Okay. At times, yes.
Okay. Thank you for the Skyline chili, by the way. For those of you who don't know what it is, that's a long story. But nonetheless, because of Michael's background, not just in comedy, but what he does with it in the real world, the rest of the people on this team, in addition to Kermit and myself, we've got Robin Johnson, who's a 20-year military vet. And so she works with veterans dealing with PTSD and trauma. We've got David Jacobson from Tucson, Arizona, who's a hospitalist who works in trauma and deals with patients and their families. Julie Ostro is in Chicago. She was trained at Second City, but she works as a corporate trainer. And we've got these people from different backgrounds who are coming together, not because we're all funny and comedic, but because we use humor in our different fields. And so that's why we're facilitating this experience. And in essence, we're the cabin counselors who are going to work with all of the campers, all of these professionals from different fields, to let them know, as you said, Jody, we're not here to learn how to become professional comics, but how to use humor in our own world. And so here are these diverse experts who use humor in their world. Take that back to where you've come from, put it to use in your daily life. That's what we're trying to do.
I think one of the great things about going to the Comedy Center is one of the first things you see is the George Carlin exhibit, where you're seeing the scraps of paper that he wrote down, little tiny, teeny, just beginnings of thoughts that would then, through a long process, turn into a joke. And I think once you get to stand there and sit, and see these actual scraps of paper, or go to the kiosk where you can actually see photographs of hundreds of them, and also the man, you see his T-shirt and jeans, and see that he's, not a giant, he's a human being. Then you can start to say, well, I can do this. I can write down my thoughts. I can, and this is the essential. What I said to Lenny in the elevator was just that that humor connects to like an essential fact about being human is that we see through each other's eyes. And it was the moment in evolution when we realized, oh, the world is not just what I see. It's what he sees and they sees, and people over the horizon and people in the past. It's everything woven together. That is an essentially human thing. And I think that humor works with that moment of realizing that and experiencing that leap into the unknown, and realizing it can be the most exciting, even if it's at first frightening or irritating, or we feel indignant that our opinion isn't the only one. Really good humor can get us to the point of realizing this is better. It's better to have more perspectives. And then once we really learn that, then that can be the start of learning how to use humor in a way that doesn't hurt, that takes somebody past the point of being afraid or disoriented, and into the point of realizing we're all in this together. And that's a little more than I said in the elevator, but it's the essential point.
And Kermit, can I just jump on one quick thing? And I'm going to show a visual if I can hold this up. But this is the Humor Camp logo. And to me, the beauty of it is the two of these people are connecting. One comes from the yellow world on the left. One comes from the blue world on the right. But they're meeting in the middle in that green space. But I love the wink of the person on the right. That wink says, I get it. We've connected. And so the beauty of Humor Camp is bringing people together. And one of the things that Michael and Kermit know is that people in this world are suffering. I mean, there are people whose heads are so scrambled right now. They're in pain. They're afraid for a variety of reasons. And we're trying to bring them together to say, wait a minute, you're not alone. Other people feel like that, but let's look for the lighter moment here and lift you out of that dark space. And so one of the things that's going to happen at Humor Camp, I am confident, is that some people are going to come there because they're in an uncomfortable place and they're looking for some humor. They need to be lifted out of that dark space. I mean, Kermit, that's your bread and butter.
Yeah. It has at times felt like, I've wondered, is this the right time in history to be doing this? I mean, things are so precarious and so hard. I mean, no matter what perspective you have, it's a hard time. And it's been a little hard sometimes to think that it is the right thing to do. But as you say, this is when, again, this all, for me, this arose out of, sometimes being in locked hospital rooms with people who are in restraints, people who are at the worst moments of their lives, and trying to make a connection with them, and sometimes just throwing out little jokes until I got an involuntary eye movement that told me, I've got him. And so, that's what we're doing. That wink is an invitation. That wink is like, please, let's play.
Well, you had something you wanted to share?
Yeah, to go back, a couple of things what Kermit said about not only with the Comedy Center, it's just not comedians. You have radio shows, you have TV shows, you have movies. So people that go there, their influences in humor and comedy will be there, and it's like a trip down memory lane. I remember sitting there at the TV part, and with my own comedy stylings, they gear it towards you, and to see some of those clips was fascinating again. And you can hear laughter throughout the Comedy Center from people going down this memory lane and listening to their favorite people. So I love the fact that it's at the center. The other thing with Kermit just said, I think with Humor Camp and also Lenny, we're giving people the tools to take back to their everyday life. It's no different than when I went to grief counseling. Now I had the tools to cope, not going to counseling. So now I know what I have to do. And I think that's I think it's one of the goals and probably the outcomes of Humor Camp is giving people these tools and saying it's okay to laugh at this, or that. And it's going to be able to allow them to live life hopefully a little bit healthier.
And I also wanted to bring up because what you're saying, Michael, and Kermit said before, which is this the right time right now? And I don't know that there could be a better time because at the end of the day, with all that is going on, whatever you believe and wherever the background is that if we don't gain perspective and connection amongst our together with like-minded individuals, it is difficult. It feels very siloed, especially there, we're kind of definitely fragmented. And I think this is a good opportunity to bring some lightheartedness and connectiveness. And I don't know all your plans and all that you're doing, but just hearing what is happening, I know that I feel already connected to it. And I think it's totally the right time. I started this podcast during COVID. I didn't know that was going to be the right time either. And I had no idea who I was going to interview or who was going to be listening. And now somehow I'm sitting here with all of you. And because of that, and I wanted to help people have a new perspective in a time where everybody was losing perspective. So I think this is definitely my personal opinion on this is such a great time for what you're doing.
Well, and I'm going to jump in with a little historical perspective because this is a difficult moment that we're all experiencing from whatever perspective, you take geopolitically. In the late 1800s, Oscar Wilde said, if you want to tell the truth, make people laugh, otherwise they'll kill you. And so being able to kind of tell the truth, but make them laugh so that they can at least take it on a lighter note. Will Rogers said there are people running governments who shouldn't be allowed to play with matches. He said that 120 years ago. And Mort Saul talked about political humor. And the concept, though, of it all is we live in a society where we're allowed to make fun of the king. The king has no clothes. So whether it was 150 years ago or 50 years ago or today, rather than being so entrenched in our, taking sides, we have to step back and look at it from 30,000 feet and say, the American experiment is letting people laugh at the king, whoever the king is. And we all need to lighten up because this moment will pass. And 20 or 50 years from now, whoever is in charge is going to be the butt of the joke. And people are so caught up in the moment today. I mean, some people are really just super stressed out about the moment. They need to kind of widen their perspective and see today as one day in 250 years of this experiment that Ben Franklin said, the Constitution may allow you to seek happiness, but you have to find it on your own. And so hopefully people will lighten up in this difficult moment.
Very well said. I love that. Thank you. I did want to ask you all a question. I usually ask it at the very beginning of the podcast, but we're doing this now instead. Is what did you think you were going to be when you grew up? Because this is definitely something very different. In some cases, maybe you did think you were going to be this when you grew up. But I know I'm nowhere near what I thought. So, well, actually, that's not true. It's just I thought it would be just a little bit different than where I am right now. Lenny, let me ask you first. What did you think you were going to be when you grew up?
Two things, an astronaut or a stand-up comedian. However, I stink at math. I would throw up on roller coasters, so I kind of put the astronaut thing aside. The the comedy historian piece of it allowed me to be funny and spontaneous with people without the pressure. And Michael knows this. If you tell a joke and people don't laugh, you've dug yourself into a hole that you've got to get yourself out of. I don't have to be funny, but with people, I'm spontaneous and there's humor. And that allows me to kind of live that childhood dream of being a comedian, but in my own way of doing it. So I wanted to be an astronaut, forget that. A stand up comic, I'm doing it in my own way.
Oh, that's awesome. Very well put. And you take everybody on a journey and a ride anyway, where astronauts go on journeys all the time, right? So that's the same. Like I said, I wanted to be a teacher, a psychologist, and there was one other thing. There were three things all in one. And so I'm doing some of that just through the work I'm doing here. But it's very interesting how little bits and pieces we use some of those skills in what we're doing now. Kermit.
I just wanted to say about Lenny that I mean, as I understand it, on the Borscht Belt, there was no shame in using other people's jokes. I mean, the point was to bring it. There was no expectation that you were doing original material, even. So you're just continuing that tradition. But I mean that seriously. You're bringing the all the history of the warmth and the deep feeling and the love and you're working with that. I mean, you sing. It's its own accomplishment. What you do. I thought I would be an English professor. I really didn't. I didn't imagine anything else. And then, but I found when I went, and I went to the first college I went to was one that I assumed I would come out as an English professor. But I also chose it because they did not have a film department. Because I knew it was time for me to grow up and forget about making films. And then while I was there, this was Oberlin College, all I could do was go to the library and read New York, magazine, anything that came from New York or about film, I was reading in the library, and doing theater. I was, doing shows, and I ended up joining a mime troupe and quitting Oberlin. Going on the road. I actually literally joined the circus in a way. And because I thought actually being a mime that I would learn how to tell the kinds of stories I knew I wanted to tell in film. But it was a cheap way to do it. You could just have an idea and put it on stage that night. And it was actually one of the smart things I've done doing that. Also because it was wonderful experience. Anyway, but that led to making the film about the discovery of comedy and so forth and so on. And yeah.
Amazing. And Michael?
First of all, I want to address Lenny's statement about being a comedian and not having a joke land. I have no idea what you're talking about. Mine always hit, Lenny. Always. Always.
Sure.
No idea what you're talking about. As a kid, look, there was two things, Spider-Man and being a comedian. And I'm still holding out hope that science will allow me to be Spider-Man. But I started doing magic as a kid. I was 7, 8 years old, and I was hooked and making my family laugh and, doing shows. Humor, again, it goes back to being a kid. And, my dad let me stay up late to watch Johnny Carson. And, if my favorite comedian was on, he would wake me up and say, hey, come out here. So-and-so is on. Howie Mandel is on, or Harry Anderson, who was a huge influence on my life because he did comedy and magic and put those two together. But even in high school, I would start writing material in high school. And the first time I did stand up, I was 17 or 18, and it was horrible. I didn't know what I was doing because back then magic allowed me to get those laughs. The trick did it. And here I was, it's just me. And man, when you're in, we talked about self-sacrificing before. It's you, the microphone, and an audience. And that's all, and you're bare. And I love it. Whether it's a good night or bad night, there's still nothing like that high of making an audience laugh. And as we talked about before, building that unity, that community together for that one night those 30 minutes or whatever, however long I'm on stage to do that job. It's incredible. So ever since I was a kid, and I may not be, in the comedy, center, anytime soon. I hope to have my own wing one day, but that's another story. But you know, I didn't want to be on my deathbed and say I wish I tried this and never did it. So I meet so many people go, I want to try out comedy. Okay, go do open mic. And then they don't want to, or the people say I make my friends laugh so I could do it on stage. It's night and day. And as we talk about humor, again, we're not talking about being a comedian going through humor camp. We're using humor in our everyday practice. But yeah, it goes back to being a kid, and that's it. I love it, and I couldn't imagine not doing it.
And Michael, I want to build on that. When people go to the Humor Camp website, humorcamp.com, I think that they're going to get the understanding of what we're trying to create. Sometimes you can talk about it, but you can't get a handle on it. The website does a really good job of explaining what we are trying to be and what we're not trying to be. And in building that sense of community, I think they're going to get a feel for that. So I encourage people who are interested in learning more about Humor Camp to go to humorcamp.com. And if you have any questions, let us know, because it's going to be, to use Kermit's phrase, a spiritual experience. People coming together and just having that aha moment, or that moment of release, and feeling like they've found a group of people that they can relate to or made new friends. They're using comedy kind of as the platform to create that new discovery, if you will, if that makes sense. Kermit, did I say that succinctly to your
Oh, yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Thanks. Also, people can go to humorcamp.lol, by the way.
And that's our email, humorcamplol@gmail.com. You're very good at sneaking that in.
Oh, that too. Yeah. But we did actually get the .lol.
I love that. And you
domain.
guys you got it ahead of me. I was going to ask you, so how do people sign up and look at that and find out more? So you guys you were ahead of me on that. So I have to ask this because some might be thinking about this. So Michael, you gave us who some of your favorite comedians were. What about you, Kermit and Lenny? Who were those people for you?
Kermit, you go first.
Oh, I grew up loving Steve Martin and Robin Williams, and yeah. So and I could go on, but I won't.
For me, two people. In fact, they're the two people I want to meet in heaven after I say hello to my family: Charlie Chaplin and Harpo Marx. Because what Chaplin did when film was new, as a storyteller, in creating a character that could connect with people and not only communicate emotion, but could evoke an emotional response out of people without speaking, because it was silent film. What Chaplin did, he's the greatest of all. And what Harpo did in the talkies with the rest of the Marx Brothers, he communicated with people with his expressions, with his childlike character, with his music. So Harpo Marx and Charlie Chaplin, and I know they'll be waiting for me at lunch on the second day.
Well, you got it all planned out. I love it. So I can't believe we're coming to an hour here, and I wanted to just say I want to give you a moment to share what do you want the listeners to know that we might not have shared about you or about something related to the work that you do. And I'll start with you, Kermit.
I feel pretty satisfied. I feel like I've had more than my share of time, so I yield the remainder of my time to my colleagues.
Wow. That was a short elevator ride. I'll take your time. A couple of quick things. I'm also involved with the Borscht Belt Museum in Ellenville, New York, which really honors the comedic history, the culinary history, the culture of the Borscht Belt. I'm very proud of that. And what I am most excited about is several of us in the Humor Camp leadership team came out of an organization called AATH, the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. That kind of gave us the opportunity to meet like-minded humor professionals. And what Kermit and I are doing is taking it not one step deeper, but about 5 steps deeper in Jamestown, New York. So what I hope people do is check out humorcamp.com, contact us with questions, come to Jamestown. It's going to be a humorous spiritual experience. I really believe that. And I wouldn't have gotten involved with this project and spent the time talking with Kermit as I've done over several years if I didn't believe in his vision. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Lenny.
I just quickly, I don't want to shortchange the ATH in terms of depth. I mean, there's, it's just a different format that we're doing where, we have it's a very curated, program. The AATH is a lot of very, very wonderful, deep thinkers each one presenting their perspective. So it's different. It's a different thing. We're trying to take people on a specific journey of understanding that over, the 2.5 days on the location, but also days, on online prior and after to talk about it.
Before Michael, we get to you on that question, I just want to ask Lenny something that I mentioned earlier in your bios and talk about toxic sameness. Can you just give me the definition so that people understand that?
Meatloaf on Monday. People lead very boring lives. I think most people lead very boring lives. They come home, they watch reruns, they watch a ball game, they say hello to their spouse, they say hello to their children. They lead pretty boring lives. They go to work, they push the paper, they do the keyboard thing. And I think that's a shame that people it's stopping to smell the roses, but meeting new people, having conversations with strangers, but interacting with the world. My challenge is to always meet new people because I never know who I'm going to meet in an elevator or in a hotel lobby. And my world has become richer because of that. I wouldn't be with my spouse had I not, taken the adventurous step to reach out and meet a new person. And so get out of that rut, get out of that toxic sameness. Every day is the same. It's like Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. I don't want that to be my life. I want every day to have something new and interesting and exciting. That's what I mean by getting out of that rut of toxic sameness.
I love that. So thank you for that. That's a great term. I will always give you credit if I ever use it because I think it's a fabulous term. So thank you for that. And also, I'm reading your bio here, 14 foul balls at Major League Baseball games?
Would have had 15, but I broke my finger on what would have been the 15th foul ball. It was the easiest of all of them. I ended up with a broken finger, but no other professional speaker, to my knowledge, in the world has caught 14 foul balls. So I'll take that as quite an honor.
That's great. Guinness Book of World Records, right? You're heading in there for that.
Amen. Amen.
Michael, what do you want everybody to know that you might not have shared yet?
I can't top that. Again, I want to finish it with, who are your favorite comedians, Jody? I mean, we all answered, but what about you?
Lucy was always one of mine, to be honest with you. I mean, that was definitely, I have so many though. I'm trying to think. Definitely Lucy and, she caught me off guard, Michael. Robin Williams for sure too. I just adored him, and just trying to think who else. I'll think of 10 of them when I get off of here for sure. But I love comedy. I love going to comedy shows. I love hearing people laugh. It doesn't have to be that I laugh, but I do. I will say this, Michael, when those moments do happen, when the comedian doesn't get the laugh, the comic doesn't get the laughs, I want to hide under the table and I feel so bad. I want to hug them because I just feel so bad for them in that moment. It's like, oh gosh, just be a nice audience and laugh, even if just laugh. It's okay. Like, make the person feel good.
Yeah, but it happens. That's part of it. You can't always hit a home run. on each joke again, because every audience has a different, everyone's coming with different styles of humor. And the fact that we can make an audience laugh and bring everyone together like that is pretty awesome. Again, it goes back to our material, our thoughts. And that's what's so fascinating about this, and being in touch with Kermit and Lenny, where we talk the same language and have this passion of humor and comedy. That's why I signed on to this, because it's awesome to be a part of this, but also to talk to other people who adore, I'll say adore, eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff and understand it and want to know more and how it works. And, it's so fascinating. So that's why I love it. If we get, teachers, first responders, even speakers who want to use, how to use more humor into their presentations, because we know it's the humorous speakers that we listen to that we enjoy the most, right? How many times have you heard a speaker who's all dry and you get nothing out of it, and you're always looking at your watch going, when is this over? And you're only 5 minutes into an hour presentation. So, this is for anyone who wants to come, and how we can put humor, into their life, and how to use it more.
I love that, especially on the speaker side, because of the fact that I have spent many hours listening to people who are such nice people, but they just have that monotone sound. So if this can infuse a little bit of that in there, it will help them connect better to their audiences. I want to thank all of you for just sharing. Kermit, did you have something you wanted to add? Yeah.
Well, it's a original to the moment thought. So if I could, coming out of this conversation, because I was just thinking about how Steve Martin's routines, his early routines, were built on getting a laugh out of nothing, out of the fact that a joke didn't happen, or originally the fact that a magic trick didn't happen, and then he would just move on as if he's still the best magician in the world, and he thought this all through very philosophically. That the audience would then have to the laugh would come from catching up with the situation. And then other things, I was remembering that, so I was thinking of John Rickles, who, if you listen to the things he's saying, they make no sense. They're not even actually insults. Calling somebody a hockey puck, what does that even mean? It's the rhythm of it that matters. It's the cadence of the humor. And that brings back something I mentioned during our pre-interview. When I was doing mime, I had a routine where I pretended to be a comedian. But obviously I wasn't telling jokes. I was just evoking the rhythm and the cadence and the patterns of me being a comedian, trying to get a laugh without any jokes. And I would get laughs because people knew the moment that a laugh was supposed to come. And I think the lesson that comes out of all of this is that even when a comedian doesn't get a laugh, you're still in the game. You've all come together. You're still connecting. That's why Johnny Carson or so many other people could get a laugh out of a complete failure of a joke. It's not it goes back to one of the first things I said about Provine. It's not about whether it's funny. That's the big thing to learn. It's, you could tell a stupid joke. It's the sincerity and the authenticity and the joy and the connection, the feeling of connection with which you bring it. That's what matters. You can, we've set too high a bar in our culture for who gets to be called funny or not. It's the sharing the joy that matters.
100%. And I love that. Thank you for ending on that. That's a perfect way to end. It is the sharing the joy and the connection. And Lenny, thanks for remembering my tagline. I appreciate that. The connect, collaborate, create, and inspire. Well, thank you all. One more time, how do people register and find out more about Humor Camp, Lenny?
Go to humorcamp.com, and you can also call 1-862-3-LAUGHS. That's 1-862-352-8447. And go to the website, humorcamp.com, and you can contact us through the website. We look forward to seeing you October 9th to 12th in Jamestown, New York.
Looking forward to it too. Michael, anything you want to push out there right now?
No, that's funny.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you to all of you, Michael, Lenny, Kermit, for being part of this today. I'm so grateful to know all of you. And I'm going to say what I say at the end of every single podcast. Today is the day you cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So what small or large step are you going to take today to get yourself closer to your goals? Have a great week, everyone. Bye.